So welcome to the Three Principles Global Community webinar. The Three Principles Global Community, or 3PGC, is a nonprofit organization committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles as introduced by Sydney Banks to people throughout the world. My name is Stephanie Benedetto, and today we have a presentation on the joy of being with the beautiful and renowned Natasha Swerdloff. And did I say your last name properly? I forgot to ask you about that, Natasha.
Yeah, Swerdloff, yes.
Excellent. So let me tell you a little bit about Natasha in case you haven't met her already. She owns the Principles Institute and is trained as a psychotherapist, author, and business consultant. Based in Denmark, she's been self-employed since 1996 and delivers trainings, executive coaching, and facilitation to clients all over the world from a three-principle-based approach. Natasha is the co-author of the book Coming Home that she wrote with Dr. Dicken Bettinger in 2015. And I had the pleasure of seeing both Natasha and Dicken in person before the pandemic was it Santa Rosa, California, I think?
Yeah, in 2020. Yeah.
Yep. And it was amazing. And we talked about coming home. It was such a beautiful feeling. So I'm really pleased to get to hear from you again today. So take it away, Natasha.
Thank you so much for that sweet introduction, Stephanie. And thanks everyone for coming and joining me today. I am right now sitting on Maui. I've been on vacation here for a week and it's been just beautiful. I feel very blessed to be here. And I'm so inspired to speak about the joy of being, because the joy of being has nothing to do with any circumstance that we're in. Like it would be easy to say, hey, I'm in Maui, it's great weather, the ocean's blue, you know, the sky's gorgeous, there's palm trees and whales that I can see when I look out the window. But the kind of joy of being that I'm speaking about has nothing to do with circumstance. And I really wanted to start with a little story because a couple of days ago, we went whale watching. Our beautiful friends, Patricia and Shelley, who we're staying with, have a friend who owns a little 22-foot boat. And he took us out for a whale watch. Now, these whales, humpback whales, they're huge animals, and they come each year to Maui to give birth to their calves, and they swim around, and they're just tons of them out here, literally tons, because they're huge. So we went out on this boat. After about 5-10 minutes, we saw the first group of whales. There was 5 or 6 of them playing, and a lot of the males right now, they compete against each other to get the females, of course. And always when there are whales, there are whale watching boats that sort of come to the whales to watch, of course. So after looking at those for a little bit, we sailed on and we came to the next group of whales who are also playing and competing and all of this. And we kept going throughout many hours of the day to different groups of whales. And then at some point, we were on our way back. We'd been out 3-4 hours, and we were going to sail back to shore. And suddenly we see something underneath the boat. And the captain says to my husband, John, see if there's a whale underneath. And so my husband puts on his mask and snorkel, and he puts down his head underneath the water, and he comes up. He could hardly breathe because he had his mouth full of water, because the whales are so big, and it was right underneath the boat. So he was like, "There's a whale down here. It's huge." And so what we did was we all put on our mask and we slipped over the side of the boat very, very gently. And what it was a whale mom with a whale baby right underneath the boat. And I came down, and I had my mask on and my snorkel, and it turns out that where I came down in the water was just above the whale. So she was right maybe 10 feet under me, or that would be about 3 meters. It's close, and they're huge. And at the moment that I'm over her, she kind of starts to come up a little bit, her and the whale baby. And And I feel a panic. I've never been around an animal that big. I don't know if you can imagine how fragile you feel, a small human being against this huge humpback whale. And then something incredible happened. It was as if she communicated to me, it's okay. I won't hurt you. Everything is fine. Just relax. Now, of course, it's wordless. And of course, this is just a sense, but it was so clear to me. First of all, that we are one. Secondly, that consciousness is what connects us all. There was a knowing that she was saying this to me that was so deep that any kind of anxiety I had about what was going on just disappeared from me immediately. And I just floated. I just stayed in there and I just floated. And for a couple of minutes, I was following her. And then she was away with the whale baby. And I came up for air and I was like, my heart was pounding. and I was so excited. And the boat had come quite far away because there was a sail up. So I was trying to find my way over to the others. But that kind of knowing is what I want to talk to you about today. Knowing and the joy of being is the same. Now, this knowing is something that all of us know. And what I want to do today is to tell you about how this is ordinary. Knowing is ordinary. Knowing is something that all of us have access to all of the time. And knowing is practical. So today I want to share some really practical examples of how knowing guides us always, and how it's accessible to all of us always. And so I'll speak for a little bit, and then at some point I will open up for questions. So I wanted to start with that story, and then I wanted to continue with something that happened just last night. When we were here 5 years ago, we stayed at a condo, and it turns out that the condo was owned by a Danish woman who lived on the condo upstairs. At that time, she was 91 years old, and we came for Christmas, and she invited us to have Christmas with her. And it was so sweet. We spoke Danish, we sang Danish Christmas songs. She was so excited because her children do not speak a lot of Danish, so she was really excited to be able to speak with us. And then we've been coming back each year, except last year because of COVID, but we've been coming back each year to visit her. And so last night, she came back specifically to see us, and we had one evening together. She's 96 now, and it was amazing to see her. It's really incredible to be with a human being that has this just presence, just this feeling of she's seen so much, she knows so much. It was really beautiful. I spent almost all evening just touching her, caressing her arm, and just looking into her eyes. And then at the end of the evening, as we said goodbye, she looked at me and I looked at her. And I knew that it was the last time that I would ever see her. And I just had so much, even when I speak about it now, I get really touched. I know it. She knew it. We didn't say anything about it, but both of us knew that this was the last time in this life that we'll see each other. It's another kind of knowing that some of you also might have experienced in your life when you know something. I also remember a few years ago, I was traveling, I came back home, I went to visit my parents, and I came into their living room and both of them looked like something terrible had happened. And I was like, what's going on? They said, sit down. I sat down. They said, your sister has cancer. And my whole body went like this. I went, what? And then a feeling of knowing so strong came over me. The feeling was as deep as the whale communicating to me. There was this feeling of knowing that my sister would be okay. And I came back in my chair and I looked at my parents. I said, it's going to be okay. She's already okay. And she was, which I'm grateful for. So knowing is something that affects us in big ways and in small ways. It's something that's always with us. And the only thing that stops us from really knowing our knowing is because we get caught up by our thinking. It's normal. We all do. I do too. Because our thinking keeps telling us that something is going on that's important. Like something is you have to pay attention to this. It's just what our mind does. Our personal mind is keeps being occupied with and engaged with thinking. And so we can become so involved in the foreground of our attention, that we don't really pay attention to the knowing. I'm sure a lot of you know this feeling of having this sense of, oh, I know I really should be doing this. But then my ego or my conceptual mind says, no, but you should, and this way and that way, and it analyzes. It's one of the most common questions that I get is, how do I know when it's ego, and how do I know when it's wisdom? And it's actually an easy answer, because when it's wisdom, it comes with a feeling. The feeling of knowing is so deep. The feeling of knowing has no words. You just know something. Now, let me give you a couple of examples of things that I think that you know. If you think about loving someone, if you have children, if you have an animal, the wonderful women that we're staying with have a dog, a golden retriever, and they love her so much. It's just the knowing of love. Love is one of these things that you just know when you know it. They don't love Sadie because she's fluffy or that she has long, soft ears, big brown eyes. It's something deeper than that. And love is something that it doesn't come and go. It's just always there. Sure, we can get annoyed with our partner or with somebody that in our family, but the love is there. The knowing of love is there. So that's one of the ways that we can know knowing, is that love has no words. We might use words and say, I love you. But the feeling of love is so deep, it's wordless, and we know it. Another thing that you probably know is when you see beauty, when you see something that's beautiful, or you're looking at animals, or you're seeing a sunset. What is it that happens in that moment? Why is it that we all seem to flock to see, for instance, the whales right here on Maui? There's boats and boats and boats every day going out to see the whales, because in the moment that we see the whales, we go, oh! It's so interesting when you're out there amongst other boats, whenever the whale comes up and splashes or something, you can hear from all the boats, whoa! Why is that? Well, because in that moment, we fall out of our thinking. Now, falling out of our thinking is just a metaphor. You can't fall out of your thinking, but for a moment it's like the sun comes out through the clouds, and there's just pure knowing, pure beauty, pure awe of something so incredible. We all know that. We all have something in our lives that when we see it, whether it's a puppy or a baby or a whale, that just go, wow. So knowing is something that all of us are connected to deeply. In fact, it's the most intimate part of who we are. You've always known. When a baby is born, they know, they look around, they react to what's going on around them. They don't see so well in the beginning, but they have a knowing of somebody being close to them. They have a knowing of being hungry or whatever it is, or having pain. Knowing is the one thing, it's not a thing, but it's the one essence that is who we are, that's been with us from the very beginning. It's unchanging. Knowing, awareness, consciousness, these are all words for the same essence. Knowing or consciousness, pure consciousness, is what's been with us always. It's unchanged. You have known your experiences for your entire life. No matter if it's a positive experience or a negative experience, something knows your experience. There's something that's aware of you experiencing. Now, the experiences themselves can be horrible. Trauma, violence, terrible things, things from anxiety, depression, right? We can be tormented by our mind. And when we go into those experiences, when we keep thinking about them and focusing on them, we feel the torment. When we believe that that's true, that's when we feel the experience. So when we get caught up in that, we suffer. What I love about the three principles is that it points towards that there's something that knows experience. And that which knows experience is not the experience itself. That which knows all of what happens in your life is never touched by or stained by or damaged by any experience, no matter how horrible it has been. Nothing in your past could ever ruin or damage this knowing, your consciousness, your essence. That's why you keep hearing amongst all of us teachers within the three principles that you're okay, you're always okay. I remember hearing that in the beginning and going, how can that be? There's so much terrible things going on in the world. I'm not even gonna go into that. You all know what's going on in different places of the world, and it's terrible. So on the physical level, it's true. So much terrible things are going on. It's true that myself and probably many of you have had traumas in your life. That's true. So when we're saying that there's something inside that is perfect, there's something that's never broken, what we're pointing to is not in the world of form. It's not in the objective experience. It is that which knows objective experience. The three principles point to what creates experience. It's what creates your psychology. Psychology itself comes afterwards. So when we talk about personal thinking, it is an activity of consciousness. Just like a wave on the ocean is the activity of the ocean. So for us to say, oh, I have to calm down my mind, I have to stop my thinking, I have to change my thinking. It's kind of like saying to the ocean, stop those waves. Don't move around, just stay still. It's not going to happen. It's not ever going to happen. But once we realize that it's all ocean, your experiences, good experiences, bad experiences, they're made of ocean. They're made of you. They're made out of consciousness. Once you see that, and once you realize that the three principles are love, are wisdom, are creativity, together they are creation. Creation creates constantly. Our bodies, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our experiences in every moment. That's what happens all the time. And once we realize that it is the activity of consciousness, it's the activity of the three principles. We are the three principles in action. Once we start to see that more deeply, we start to let go of believing and thinking about our experiences, which can seem horrible at times. So to see that thought, like personal thinking, is an activity of consciousness, And the experience of having negative thinking, for instance, is made from these three principles, sets us free. Once we realize and see the power of thought to create experience, then we fall into this space of consciousness. And again, falling into is just a metaphor. We're always here. We cannot get away from home. But we fall back into this awareness and we start to notice, oh, right now I'm caught up in my thinking. Right now I'm believing what my intellect is telling me. And once we come back into this space and we rest here, it's really like when you go into the ocean, just a couple of feet down, it's silent, it's quiet, it's still, it's beautiful. Once we rest in this, we are guided perfectly by life. Today, after this webinar, I'm leaving to fly to Los Angeles, and I was awake most of the night and thinking about this talk and thinking about would I make it to the airport, and have we uploaded all the right documents, and when we get to Los Angeles, can we get the right car, and have we booked the right place, and will we find it? And you know what it's like being awake at night. I'm sure all of you have tried that, being awake at night. And what does your mind do at night? It goes, oh, have you got this right now? And oh, you're not sleeping. That's going to make it impossible for you to give a talk tomorrow. Oh, you're not sleeping. You're going to be so tired you won't know what to say, and they'll all think that you're terrible, and will you make the plane, and what if the taxi doesn't come? And you know what it's like, don't you? You know what it's like when you're awake at night and your ego, your conceptual mind talks to you, sometimes screams at you. So something that's really practical about this understanding is that was going on for me in the night. And then I realized that because the tension and stress that I was feeling has become an invitation for me to see that, wow, right now, my intellect is screaming at me. Right now, it's telling me all kinds of terrible things that can happen. And so it became an invitation to me to just notice very gently, to go from the foreground of my attention back into this presence of awareness. And when I rested back in that, I still didn't sleep, but I rested. And when I got out of bed this morning, I felt pretty rested. I'll probably sleep on the flight to Los Angeles, which is fine. But it's just to say that we all get caught up. It's never going to change. The three principles is not about how to feel happy all the time, or how to stop thinking, change thinking, manipulate thinking. That's what many kinds of therapy and psychology does. It is pointing towards the fact that you're thinking. And then when you believe that thinking, you will be caught up by experience. It's what happens to all of us. So in terms of not sleeping, that's a really also a practical way that you can wake up, literally waking up to the fact that you're thinking. And then very gently guide yourself back to that which is aware of your thinking. Noticing that the wave of the ocean goes up into attention. It brings attention to something that you're thinking about. So the foreground of attention, it's like seeing a movie, and you're seeing the movie and you're caught up by the movie, and it's scary or it's wonderful. And then kind of noticing, wow, the movie is being played on a screen. And the screen is untouched by anything that happens in the movie. It's always untouched. There's no scratches on it. Nothing is damaged on the screen. It cannot be damaged by anything that goes on in the movie, no matter how violent the movie is. Haven't you had parents or friends or partners say to you, if you were watching a movie and it scared you, saying, it's just a movie, it's just ketchup. My husband has to remind me of that often because I'm one of these people who get caught up by movies. But as soon as I lean back and go, oh yeah, it is actually a movie. It's happening on a screen right now. Then I fall back into this comfortable place. I just wanted to read something from the book that I wrote with Dicken Bettinger, Coming Home. I don't know if you can see it. I'm sure most of you know it. I'm just going to read something about wisdom because it's what we're talking about today. Wisdom is an intelligence that transcends the personal. The problem is we personalize wisdom. We think it's my wisdom. We think we have to access it or tap into it. In fact, wisdom works beautifully without our interference. It guides us towards thriving in the same way it does for everything in nature. Wisdom is not operated by the intellect. It operates the intellect. When your personal thinking quiets down, wisdom can operate most effectively and efficiently. Then wisdom guides you effortlessly through your life. It's always there trying to break through, but it can be hard to hear your wisdom when you're caught up in and listening to your insecure thinking. That's all that ever happens, is that we get caught up in our thinking and we forget that there's something that operates us perfectly. Everything is guided in the same way. The way that every year the whales come here to Maui to have their calves, and then they're guided back to the Pacific afterwards to feed. They don't feed here actually. What is that? What is that intelligence behind all of life that guides all of us? Another way that this understanding about knowing and wisdom is practical is that in the night when I was, oh, I'm not sleeping, what will I say tomorrow? There was a knowing that I would know exactly what to say. I just knew it. It's not that I planned anything. I haven't written anything down, but one of the things that came to me was, oh, you should read something from the chapter on wisdom. Now, I haven't looked in my book for a long time, but it was just like, oh. And so this morning when I got out of bed, I grabbed the book and I just read. I thought, oh, that makes sense why I should read that today. So it's just incredibly practical also when we have to do something, be somewhere. It comes with ideas of how to solve it. Like often when I have something that I need to solve, I'll have it going on in my mind for a while. And I used to try to solve things with my intellect. It's stressful. It can take a long time. It doesn't feel very good. So in a very practical way, I've learned that when I have a real issue, something that I don't know how to solve, if I sometimes I pretend that I'm sort of putting it in the background and I go, okay, a solution will come. And a solution comes. It comes in ways that I could not imagine. Its creative way of showing me what should happen is just, it's surprising. It's very often in ways that I could not have imagined. The way Dicken and I wrote this book was entirely through wisdom. And the way we did it was we would have conversations either on Zoom or Skype, and of course we would also spend time together over the 2 years that we wrote. And so whenever we were together, we would notice how we were feeling. And then we would talk about something like, well, what do you think of meditation? Or how do you view ego? Or, how would we answer this question? And then we would start exploring it. We would talk about it. And sometimes we would record our conversations. And then we started to write things down when we both of us knew at the same time what to write. That's why the book is written in one voice. It's because we were not two people writing. There was the voice of wisdom, just one voice coming out. And sometimes, especially if we'd been writing for a couple of hours, our intellects would start to take over. Oh, we should do this now. And then one of us would say something and the other one would go, the feeling is gone. I would like, oh, you're right. The feeling is gone. Wisdom is not here right now. We probably need a break. And then we would either schedule a talk for next week, or if we were together, we would go for a walk or have a cup of tea and a chocolate biscuit. You know, we would take a break and we would wait and wait and wait. And then one or the other would go, oh, I have an idea for the next piece we could write. And pretty much 100% of the time, whenever one person said, I have an idea, the other person at the same time had the same idea. So wisdom breaks through consciousness, not in two people, but in one consciousness. It is the most incredible collaboration you can have with anyone, is when you rest in this awareness, when you know you're one. And when you listen to that voice of wisdom and not to the intellect, because the intellect has a lot of ideas about how to write a book and who's the audience and should we do this or that. We had many ideas in the beginning. But the more we came into the book, the more we worked with this, the more we realized that something deeper was coming through us. And a lot of the ideas that we had from the beginning, they didn't even show up in wisdom. And so the book, the way it is today, is written from our joint wisdom, not our joint wisdom, just wisdom. The same wisdom that you all have access to. So that's also, you've probably heard many times, a lot of us teachers saying, I don't have more access than you do. I'm not more enlightened than you are. We all have the same ability to listen to this knowing. We all have the same access. The only thing that I've been aware of the last 10 years, since I got introduced to this understanding, is that I've noticed the feeling that comes out when it's wisdom, and then the tension that comes out when it's the ego. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Because ego, it analyzes. It creates lists. It say, well, you could do this, but then you could also do that, right? As soon as there's two different ways of solving something, it's never wisdom. It's that simple. It's always the intellect. Wisdom always comes up as one knowing of exactly what to do. Can we overhear it? Oh yeah, all the time. I've known many things in my life that I shouldn't have done that I did anyway, because my intellect thought it was a great idea. And it came up with all kinds of amazing suggestions of why it was a good idea. Do you know what I mean? Right? Our ego does that. Yeah, you have that feeling, but look, what if you did it? And then it would be all these great things that could happen. And so I've gone against my wisdom many times, and I'm sure you have too. I don't so often anymore. I've become better and better at listening to and trusting the guide that's always inside. So my message to you today is just so simple. This joy of being, this guidance that we all have inside, it's not special. Right? It's not a few people, Sydney Banks or Eckhart Tolle or Byron Katie, all these wonderful people. It's not something that they have alone. We have it in ourselves. It's already here. I hear so often people say, oh, I want to be enlightened. You are enlightened. You just don't know it. All the thinking that we have that enlightenment feels in a certain way or looks a certain way, or, well, if I'm enlightened, I won't ever get angry again. I won't ever get caught up by my thinking again. Sydney Banks got caught up, right? The people who knew him, the people who spent time with him would often tell stories about how, he would get angry with something, and then a little bit later he would come and say, I'm sorry, I was just caught up in a moment. So the ideas we have about what enlightenment looks like, the ideas we have about what it means to us when we know about the three principles. Oh, but I know it's only thought. I shouldn't feel this way right now. It's not helpful. It doesn't help. Telling yourself it's only thought is not helpful. Noticing that thought in the moment is creating your experience, and then gently coming back to the knowing of experience, the awareness behind experience, and just waiting until the waves come back and the ocean is calm again. That's more helpful. Let's be even more practical. Let's say that I'm having a lot of anxious thinking or depressed thinking. It's horrible. I know it from previous in my life. It's anxious thinking, for instance, is something that I think most of my family have done a lot of, and so I learned that from an early age, to be anxious about things. And now that I notice when I'm anxious about something, instead of trying to get rid of it, instead of trying to drown it by watching a movie or, well, I'll go for a run or I'll do this or that. Instead of doing that, I love my anxious thinking because I realize it's made out of the same essence I'm made out of. So instead of trying to get rid of it, I go towards it. I embrace my experience of anxious thinking because it's not me and it is me. Now, ego wants it to look like I'm an anxious person and identify with that. I have anxiety. I have a diagnosis. But once you see that I'm having anxious thinking in this moment, and I can identify with that, and I will suffer the consequences. Or I can see, oh, this is what's going on for me right now. And then I can relax back into the awareness behind the anxious thinking. And at some point, the waves always become flat again. It's its nature. Same with depressed thinking. Or thinking about, I'm worthless. You know, nobody loves me. People will leave me. Everybody's left me before. I have issues of anxiety towards people leaving me. As a psychotherapist, I heard those words many, many times. And again, the way that I help people today in my coaching practice is I try and share as gently as I can that it's normal to want to get away from those feelings and thoughts, of course, because it's not very nice. It's a horrible experience to believe in that thinking that I'm worthless. I won't amount to anything. People will leave me. People hate me. So almost every one of us have learned to go away from those experiences. But what if we know that those experiences are just activity of our own mind? What if we're not frightened of them? What if we can embrace those experiences? What if we can love those experiences? What do you think will happen? Because trying to get rid of them, trying to drown them, trying to drink them away or drug them away, or all the different ways we've probably used of ways of getting away from it, they haven't helped. Sure, it helps to drink 3 martinis in the moment, and then they, funnily enough, come back. So nothing that we have used in the past to try and get away from those feelings have helped. Even therapy. As a psychotherapist, I've gone through hundreds and hundreds of hours of therapy myself. It was always a relief when I left the therapist's office. And then it would come back. That's why I don't practice as a psychotherapist anymore. I just have conversations with people where I try and point towards what is true for all of us. I try to share and point towards that whatever we're experiencing is an activity of who we are. It's activity of this beautiful being that we share with all beings. It's not unique to us as human beings. We all have this awareness, this intelligence behind life that's moving us, that's guiding us. So embracing all of experience, loving all of experience, not running away from, but embracing it, is what I see as transformational. Is what I've realized through these 10 years of working out from this understanding. It just changes people's lives completely. As a psychotherapist, I would see people for years and years and years. They would keep coming back and they would feel a little bit better each time. Now I sometimes have 1 or 2 conversations with people. I sometimes have more. I can have 8 or 10, but very often it happens quite fast that people see something and their lives are transformed. If I don't have to be frightened about my experiences, it's going to change my life. Because now I can have an experience and not be frightened by it. I can embrace it. I can go, wow, it's just a wave in the ocean. So the joy of being is resting in and as pure consciousness. It's knowing that there will be waves in the ocean. It's okay. I'm a human being. It happens. I get caught up by them sometimes. It happens. But I can always, always find my way home, back into the joy of being, which is inside every one of us. Okay, I'd love to hear from you right now. I'd love to hear if you're hearing anything new, if something is touching you in a new way. So please raise your hand and Stephanie will help me find you and unmute you so I can hear from you.
Yeah, so it would be lovely if you'd like to ask a question or share something with Natasha, just go down to the reactions button on the bottom of your screen and raise your digital hand, and then I will call on you. That will let us see you. I see Ellen.
Hello, dear friend.
Hi there. So nice to be with you and everyone else. When you were sharing the story about your sister, it occurred to me that feeling of okay, that she would be okay. Like that she would be okay no matter what happened with her trajectory, or that she was going to be yet another cancer survivor. I'm just curious what.
That's a great question, Ellen. And to be honest, it's difficult to say because the knowing was so strong. It wasn't, I would have to use my intellect to go, well, was that she would, I knew that she was already okay. And what it was that she had a melanoma and they took it away. And then they of course went back and tested it, and there was nothing left. They took the whole thing. I didn't know that at the time, of course, but I just knew that she was already okay, without any words.
Mm-hmm. Right, because I mean, I love playing around with okayness, kind of regardless of outcome, because when we have okayness hooked on outcome, it's a bumpier road.
Yeah, exactly. I agree completely, because people die from cancer, right? And in a way, she would be okay anyway because her essence would never die, but her body might. Mm-hmm. Just like yesterday when I said goodbye to my friend Greta at 96. There was this beautiful feeling of being okay. And it's actually when she said goodbye to my husband, you know what she said? She said, "I'll see you in heaven."
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
Wow. Right. So this is,
I think that maybe people have, if people are a little bit iffy about what happens after the last breath, then that okayness with illness could be it could be a different experience.
For sure.
Maybe not. I'm not, it's not required. It's a different experience, but,
no.
But yeah, so.
Yeah.
Thank you. Big hugs. Safe travels.
Thank you. Wonderful to see you.
Mm-hmm.
See Patricia.
I had a little struggle unmuting. I wasn't going to raise my hand, but this is so beautiful. I had to take the opportunity to thank you both. Just sitting in this feeling is absolutely incredible, and I'm not sure what's going to come out of my mouth. I am kind of new to the three principles. I met Michael Neal 3 years ago, and he introduced me, and it has made such a difference in my life. The three main things I have learned for me has been that I saw I was putting expectations on things. And when I realized that, then they just naturally fell away. The second is I'd always struggled between the intellectual and the knowing, or the spiritual and the temporal, whatever verbiage you want to put on it. And I've always seen them as separate until the three principles. And now I see them as one. They're both sides of the same coin.
Yes.
Both created by the divine. And the third that I am still seeing, and I do have a knowing about, but I'm not seeing it as clearly as I'd like, is that the external circumstances don't determine how we feel.
Yes.
And I just want to add a quick little note to the last person, and I'm sorry, I forgot her name.
Ellen.
I had an NDE in 2017, and I spent 10 days on the other side, experiencing both the physical and the spiritual at the same time. And I've always been connected to the other side and been able to communicate. But they are so here with us. And we so exist, and it's so wonderful. And there is no judgment. There is just pure love.
Yes.
And pure connection.
Yes.
And I absolutely loved your story about the whales and love hearing the birds. In fact, I got distracted because I was so tuned into the birds.
They're here.
Anyway, excuse my awkward way of expressing, but thank you so much. I hope you can feel my appreciation.
Oh, I can. I'm touched by what you're sharing, Patricia. And it's so interesting that you're saying, you know, this, you've always known that there was a physical world and a spiritual world. I was so interested in psychology, you know, most of my teenage years, but I've also had some spiritual experiences. So I knew that that was a reality too. And I was, you know, then I would do one thing, then I would do the other thing. And I couldn't find the bridge until I met Dicken Bettinger in 2014. And he went, we were in a conference in London, and he spoke about that bridge beautifully in such a way that I went, oh, not only did I understand, did I see what I had known intuitively, but I knew I'd found my teacher, and he's still my teacher and my friend. Another beautiful thing that you're saying, Patricia, is that you keep seeing things, you keep, you know, going deeper into understanding things, and me too. It's wonderful how this is a journey that never ends. I don't have a lot of new insights. I have the same insights over and over, but they see them deeper. The last thing I just wanted to share with you was that my mother died 2 years ago. I was actually in Hawaii here with friends, and got a call from my dad that my mom had died that night in his arms. And of course that was a shock, and everything went quiet inside. Like I didn't know what to answer him when he called me. I didn't know, do I go home? So I didn't know what to do. I just sat with some friends, and after about 30 minutes, my body got up of the chair. I went to my computer. I started looking online for tickets. I called my travel agency, and something took over. I have no idea how that happened, but for about 4 days, everything that I did came from something else than my intellect. It got me home from Hawaii. I called my dad. I told him exactly when we'd be home, and it's like my mind was empty. Something else was doing everything for me. So I think it's so beautiful to know that this spiritual nature that we have works perfectly with the intellect, because they're not separate. Sometimes we speak about ego as the bad guy. Have to get rid of ego, have to destroy that ego, have to get over that ego. No, it's you. Do you think the ocean goes, I have to get rid of the wave? Let me hit it with a tennis racket and try to destroy it. Makes no sense. So, and another just quick thing about when my mom died was my mom and I, we had a, I won't say complicated relationship, but we would have our arguments, you know, like many mothers and daughters do. The moment she was gone, just love, pure love. There was no thinking about anything that had happened, oh, but then you said, and when I grow up, then you, all love, just connection, love. And I feel her every single day. She's not gone. She's right here.
I hope I'm not speaking out of turn. She is so with you.
I know.
And your friend will be also.
Yeah, I know.
I felt like they showed me, your mother wanted you to know that she will be she will be greeting your friend and helping her
Oh, that's nice.
on the other side.
Yeah.
Because of your great, she wants to do that for you because of your great love for your friend.
Thank you, Patricia. Thanks.
Thank you.
And let's go to Sonny, and I can, and I have more time. Don't worry if some of you want to say something, even though we'll get over the hour. I'm happy to stay a little bit. Sonny.
Hi, Natasha.
Hi, good to see you again.
So lovely to see you again. You're a beautiful human being. I love your book. That's one of my favorite books. Thank you for having written that. I was thinking about what you were talking about, the knowing. And I suddenly realized that there is so few moments that I really remember knowing. And then it came to me that, okay, the reason why I don't remember so many times knowing is because I'm just doing. But when I don't know, those occasions, I really remember a lot of them. The struggling there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's a natural flow when I'm knowing.
Yeah.
So I don't noticing it.
No.
It must be like that.
It is, because knowing or wisdom guides us constantly. There's tons of things that we do every day where we wouldn't be able to do it if it was about the intellect. You know, if we were only operated by the intellect, we'd probably be killed, you know, in the first few hours of the day. But there's a wisdom that guides us all the way, all the time, and we just don't notice it. Just like the whales probably don't notice the water that they're swimming in.
Yeah, I got a lot of different marvelous experience and memories from being guided. Some people call that synchronicity. And you know, I have had so many both funny and heartful and surprising guidance like that in my life.
Yeah.
The one of the biggest one was with my becoming wife. She was living in one apartment in Gothenburg, and Gothenburg is like 500,000 inhabitants. And when I was driving to her the first time, I will make this short. I remember that in this area, it's a lot of apartments, you know. I've been living in one of the apartments when I was 6 years and 7 years old, I remembered. And to make this story short, I ended up knocking on the same door.
Wow. Wow.
We've been together now for 33 years.
Oh, wow. You came home.
Yeah.
That's
I got a story about knowing that I would like to share. And that's really funny and was very surprising. How I became, I'm not really religious at all, but I became a Buddhist temple builder together with my wife and other other friends. And it was this day in the temple we are celebrating the New Year party in the garden. And mostly every year I am the conferencier together with another woman. And this occasion it was raining. The hours before it was raining, and it was awful. And there was like, I don't know, 500, 600, 700 people waiting for me and this woman to start up this party. I was wondering, delaying because the rain just pouring down. It was awful. And then I decided I must open it up now, cannot delay anymore. So I started to walk through the kitchen, and there was sitting some people at the table there. And then suddenly, and this was not coming from me, it was coming from my mouth, but not from me. I just turned around and told those people sitting there, now I'm going out, opening up this festival. And after that, the sun will come and it will shine on us all. And they looked at me and then looked out, and then they started to laugh at me because the rain was pouring down all the time. I don't know where I got that from. I went out on the scene, I opened up, spoke to it, and then I saw the light was coming. So I stepped outside the scene on the grass, looking up on the sky, and I saw the sky, doing like this. And the sunshine came, and it was sunshine all afternoon.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's a perfect
It was not me.
example. No, of course not. No, that's knowing, that's wisdom. That is the intelligence behind all of life. And it broke through you as words that you were saying to these people.
Yeah.
Which is always the way that I share with people in my coaching, when I do webinars like this or seminars, is that I wait for something that comes through me, and then I know to say the right thing, or I don't know how I know, I just know it and I trust it. And so you trusted that right there, and it's a beautiful example. Thank you so much, Sonny, for sharing.
Thank you.
Should we just, is there one more that would want to say something before we end?
Yeah, go ahead and raise your hand. Oh, we see Patty.
Oh, good. Hi.
Hi, Natasha. How are you?
Good.
What a great chat today. Thank you so much for this. And I really resonated when you said you were talking about our free will to override our wisdom with our intellect. And what I found being part of Three Principles community really is understanding what wisdom is. Because I look back, obviously we all have these moments in our lives where we know when we knew, and sometimes we didn't know that we knew.
Yeah.
Or we didn't know that we were overriding our intellect. And so for me, recognizing that now has helped me with self-forgiveness for things that have happened. I lost my son 10 years ago, and the morning that he died, I walked out of my bathroom and I got this nudge, knock on his door and say good morning. And automatically I went, oh no, he's got 3 hours before he has to get up. I'm going to leave him alone. We left for the day and we came back and he had taken his own life. So for years I beat myself up for, why didn't you knock on the door?
Yeah.
And this understanding has taught me, this is why. You can't blame yourself for this. This was something that you didn't understand.
Yeah.
You just didn't know what you were hearing.
Yeah.
And so now I'm paying way more attention to it. But I did find that was very healing and very forgiving to say, look, you couldn't have done better in that moment.
Yeah.
Just couldn't.
And also seeing the innocence in your son, who didn't know any better. He was suffering, and the only thing that he could think of doing was taking his life, because
100%.
he didn't understand what you understand now, which is that thinking is not who we are. It's an activity.
100%. It was the 10-year anniversary on Saturday, and I did a post on Facebook and explained this whole thing. But I recognize now, some people will say, well, why did that happen? Do you know? And I said, yes, he had thinking that he thought was real.
Yeah.
He couldn't escape.
No,
Bottom line.
he didn't know any better at that time. He was innocent in not understanding the power of mind and how there were solutions that he didn't know about at the time.
Exactly. So this has been very healing for me, this whole process to
Was-
really see what was happening in that moment. So
Yeah.
very appreciative to you and the whole community. So thank you.
Thank you. Oh, thanks for sharing that, Patty. It's always heartbreaking to hear when people take their lives, because I know it comes out of suffering, and I know that it comes out of not knowing that there's another way. When I have often people who talk about, you know, taking their own lives, that call me up, and I always say, I understand. I understand that right now you're suffering so much, and the only thing that you can think of doing is to end it. And taking your life seems like the ultimate ending of it. You know, some people, I have a neighbor who just ended his life by drinking. He was suffering tremendously, and that was his way of dealing with it. So we all, when we feel bad, you know, and we reach for something that we think will make us feel better, but we look out there. Right? We look to drinks or drugs or sex or shopping or, you know, all these different things, or taking our own life. And it makes sense. I'm suffering. I want it to stop. And the three principles are saying, turn around, embrace the pain, embrace the suffering, see it for what it is. And when you see that it's love, it's the face of God. Every little feeling that we have, every single experience, even how horrific it is the face of God. And when we see that, the face of God is just a metaphor, but it is love, it is beauty. When we see that, we stop being frightened of it, and we stop being frightened. We let go. We become expansive, open, loving, caring, and our lives are turned around. I wish for everyone that they will see this. It is, I'm working every single day to help suffering, people who suffer, to see this, to understand what it is that's creating their suffering, and to show them another way. It's all my life is about. It's all I want to do. And I know that many of you here on this call have the same calling as me, and I'm really grateful that we all are working in all our different ways in helping relieve the suffering of the world, so we can all come back to the joy of being. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Thank you, Stephanie, for being here, and it's been great being with you today, and hope to see you soon. Can I just say that for many of you who also know my dear friend Dicken and co-author of the book, we are coming to Norway in the end of September this year to do a 3-day retreat that we will call Going Deeper, exploring the heart of the three principles. So it'll be a 3-day exploration. As a retreat, we'll all be living together on a beautiful island in Norway. So we will post some of that on Facebook, and probably on the 3PGC website as well. If any of you wanted to join us, it'll be a deep dive for sure.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Natasha. And this recording will be up on the 3PGC YouTube channel shortly. So if you want to come back to it, it'll be there. And a quick reminder as well that there is a webinar with Amy Chen Mill's name. It's been rescheduled for Friday, March 4th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, same Zoom channel. And her topic will be Grief, Love, and Empowerment, Facing the Climate and Ecological Crises from a Principles Understanding. So you're invited to come back for that as well. Thank you so much, Natasha. This has been a joy.
Thanks, Stephanie. And thank you for all your chat messages. I've seen them.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Natasha and
Bye,
Stephanie.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye, Nina. Bye.
Bye, Maza.